Welcome to Hamim Loyal. This is Eric Grissom.
And I'm Dan Johnson. Eric and I will be rewatching the iconic Twin Peaks from the pilot through the return and everything in between.
While we will be spoiling everything that happens in whatever we're covering, know that we will not ruin future stories. So, if this is your first time watching, or if you're a longtime fan, you can watch along with us as we dive deep into the strange and wonderful world of Twin Peaks and David Lynch.
We live inside a dream.
Welcome back to part 2. If you have not listened to part 1, I strongly recommend that you find it and listen to it first, because we are about halfway through our talk about the Twin Peaks pilot. And let's drop in and see how old me is doing. What's old me like? If I could talk to old me, I could say, hey, old me, it's gonna get worse. But not now. It's going to be better, right? Because it's you're here, I'm here, we're here together. So at the hospital, we get the great meeting of Cooper and Truman. Anything to say about this moment?
Nah, it was pretty boring, so we can move on. This is he talks about the incredible cherry pie. He has to talk to Cooper about that, which is great. McLaughlin's line readings, his delivery through all this, where he's so in awe. He has to know what the name of the trees are, the Douglas fir, and immediately then goes into, we have to go do the autopsy with the same expression, same tone of voice, almost as though it's the same thought, which is just an incredible characterization for him. Absolutely love that. But I do like that he takes that moment to set expectations with Harry of the feds got called in to a local town, and when we're called in, and Harry's just like, yeah, I need you. I need you here. Well, and you're setting this relationship immediately.
Yes, the friendship is established, and there's a mutual respect right off the bat. And his curiosity is you're getting at, and I had that same note that you move from the trees right to the autopsy report is just so endearing.
Yeah.
And he was such a great character. I loved this guy. And I feel like...
Absolutely.
This show and the X-Files too just gave me a love of the FBI. Now I know the FBI has done many bad things over the years.
Name one.
For FBI propaganda.
Yeah. You can't get better.
Oh my! I loved everything about the FBI was great because of Cooper and it was just so perfect.
I mean, the FBI is famously staffed with nothing but Agent Dale Coopers throughout, so we're in safe hands.
As a 15-year-old, I was convinced that that was the case.
But this is the time we see him. He's 30 years old, Kyle MacLachlan at this time?
He is, yeah. And that was people have talked about that, and I think that was even a concern with the networks and stuff. But again, I see him as always being older, and they do his hair. He's got
that slicked back,
hard, slick back, heavy. You would hit that thing, crack a walnut on it.
Absolutely, and I don't think it is detrimental to the character that he is as young as he is. It's just in retrospect now that I'm 20 years older than he was at the time he did this. Yeah. He just looks like a child. He doesn't look 30. He actually looks like he's probably 21.
Yeah, I still don't see him
so young.
Way.
It was actually shocking to me because I've seen him so much more recently. He's on social media. He's all over the place. The Return was not too long ago, so I'm much more and when I originally saw this, I was much younger than him. So I still always think of him as older. So this was the first time.
Did you look up to see how old he was when he filmed this?
Yeah, he was 30. He was 30. Or 29, 30. So yeah, he was always older to me. He was older when I first watched it. He's been older as I've seen him in his recent work because he is older than me. So this is the first time I've seen him looking backwards, and it just really hit. It caught me off guard, honestly.
For whatever reason, and I always comment on that I should feel like, oh, he's just a kid, but I don't know. I still see him
it's the character
when I was little.
It's got to be the character too. But going on.
So then we go to the hospital because they meet at the hospital. So then we're going to go look at Ronette, and Cooper's looking under the fingernail for something. Again, seeding.
Yeah.
So the audience knows we're looking for something under the fingernail. We don't find anything this time, but what did you think of the initial sort of inspection of Ronette, because we hear an important detail about Teresa Banks. So it's not just that Ronette came over. There's another murder.
Here, again, seeding it for later, yeah. But we go over and we do see kind of this is the beginning of Cooper beginning his meticulous, thorough, and then later feels very wild, intuitive sense of investigation. But yeah, we start getting through this. We get some of the details that she was, Ronette was raped repeatedly.
Yeah.
They're waiting and she's may have neurological damage because of it. But then she does in her coma, in her half sleep, whatever. Don't go there. Yeah. So creepy. Yeah.
Right. This is a great scene too for setting up that we know something bigger's at play.
Yeah.
While at the same time realizing that the facilities at Twin Peaks are not necessarily the best.
Oh, right. They don't have the CAT scan.
We hear from we don't have this type of machinery, and that's going to play a bigger role later on when we start getting into autopsies and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So jumping up from there, then we're on an elevator, and we see a one-armed man, a mysterious one-armed man, before Cooper and Truman meet Dr. Jacoby, who is a whole other ball game.
Oh my goodness.
Laura's psychiatrist. So
yeah,
what is your take on Jacoby?
The way that Truman is actively avoiding Jacoby, the whole way, closing the elevator, and then Jacoby runs up the stairs and still is very one word answers to Jacoby trying to avoid him, and then just watching Cooper take this guy in, looking him up and down from the shoes to the whatever it is, foam earbuds in his ears, and all of it, just taking the whole thing in was just great. These performances that are not the center of it, but if you watch it another time and watch the other people, it's great. Jacoby's a nut job, and we'll see more later. But just a great introduction to this character.
He's got the earplugs.
Yeah, that's it.
And the thing that I love so much about the scene is the disdain and hatred that Cooper has for him. Cooper does not like.
Is that how you read it? Yeah, I didn't see.
Oh yeah,
I didn't see hatred.
Feel like he 100%.
Okay.
I feel like Cooper sizes him up and says this is a bad guy.
Yeah,
because he's saying Laura was a patient of mine. He's laughing. He's being weird.
Yeah,
he becomes a suspect right away because you're like, who is this guy? He's seeing Laura. He doesn't want her parents to know. It's a lot of red flags are going on.
Oh, for sure.
And I love the joke line when Cooper's like, that guy's a psychiatrist. After you just had that whole thing with what'd you say, Gary Cooper? Because he's got earplugs
for some reason.
But my take was 100% that Cooper does not like Jacoby, and he is
that again.
dismissive of him.
He didn't like him. He was suspicious of him. Jacoby says, "You're going to the morgue. Do you mind if I come along?" And Cooper's like, "No. Why would you want to?"
Why would you want to?
Which is great. Right. But I just did from there to hatred. I didn't quite see, but definitely suspicious,
maybe
wary.
Hatred is the wrong word. But he doesn't think he's a good guy.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Not just he's a weirdo and I'm amused, but no, there's something wrong.
No, he's a bad dude, and maybe I got to look into this guy.
Yeah, for sure.
One bit about the one-armed man. So this
just
was
for a second,
by Mark Frost, who just thought it would be a good nod to The Fugitive to have a mysterious one-armed character. So they had him in there, and the actor who plays the one-armed man has a very unique voice.
Mm-hmm.
And David Lynch, when he heard him talk, he was like, I got to use this guy somewhere. So he ends up in, when we get to the end, the international ending we'll briefly touch on. But he was just supposed to sort of be in this one scene just as a fugitive nod.
Oh.
And then he became added to the ending, and then we'll see where.
But then it becomes so much of the mythology.
Yeah,
that's
a lot of that's what
it is. That intuitive.
Stuff is this is David Lynch never sees an opportunity that he's like, this guy's the greatest voice I've ever heard. Why wouldn't I use him somewhere? And then he does.
Right.
The story isn't in stone. It's it's a malleable thing.
That's so great. I didn't know that detail. That's amazing. Okay.
So finally we get to Laura's body, right? So Cooper and Truman are examining Laura's body. The fingernail inspection pays off, and we get a letter R under her nail. This is one of my favorite scenes. But
without a doubt. I mean, this is where they're doing this investigation or inspection, and the light starts blinking. There's the static sound. The I guess coroner or the doctor at the morgue,
Jim.
Oh, great, Jim. Obviously, says that he thinks it's a bad transformer. Here's me being reading too far into it, but a bad transformer is just a great line for what's going on, especially when we talk about the international ending and it's down in the basement where the transformer would be. And and Bob is a shape. Anyway, so all of that kind of again,
electricity is like a thing that
yes,
blows
and the way that
through
you just said it too.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. But I thought it was really great. But
one little anecdote.
Yeah.
That you have.
No.
stuff
Go
to
for it.
say.
Go for it.
The scene that the coroner or the doctor, he's talking to them, and then Cooper looks at him and says, "Would you leave us alone?"
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Jim." And then Cooper says, "Would you leave us alone, please?" Now, while they were shooting this, the actor that was playing the coroner, thought that it was over. And he thought Kyle MacLachlan was saying, "What's your name?" like in between takes. So he just says, "Jim." And Kyle MacLachlan just does not break character, and he just goes with it.
That's
exchange.
great.
And that's why it doesn't make any sense, where he's just like, "Would you leave us alone, Jim?" Like, because
I thought it was just like,
Kyle MacLachlan's asking him.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like, you can look at it reality, but
No,
one of
it's
the
really good.
extras on the Blu-rays, they talk about that, and that always cracks me up. And now every time I watch it,
That's
and I see
really
that,
good.
I feel so bad for him, because it's probably maybe he's not done a lot of film work, and like he thinks it's in between scenes, and
I thought that's fantastic.
and they let it go, and it's perfect.
But then so Cooper's inspecting Laura's hand. So under the ring finger, he says to Diane in the recording, "Let's see what he left us." So again, like who talking about that. Tell me about your thoughts of that tweezer under the nail. Jesus,
Horrifying.
Does it just go in like 3 feet under her finger? Like, I don't. It just goes forever.
It freaks me out.
It's so creepy.
We're not going to talk about Fire Walk with Me, but I just watched Fire Walk with Me 2 nights ago in a theater, and there's more stuff with the finger. Like, I can't. It's so hard to look at it. Like, it just freaks me out.
Oh my
I can
God,
feel it viscerally. Like, with the tweezers going on under there, it's just frightening.
But it's so wonderful, and it comes out.
Oh, it's great.
And it's got that little bit of like bloody slime on it as well, and he pulls it out, and he sees that it's an R typed on a piece of paper. And this is again what you were saying before. He instructs Diane to go to Albert about this, not Sam. Albert's got
Sam
more on the ball.
Fire Walk with Me.
Okay. Oh yeah.
He played Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah. So it's cool. Like, it's a little like thing that when you end up watching that movie, you're like, oh,
everything comes together, and why? Yeah.
And you're right. They prep you for Albert, so now you know that you may see someone named Albert.
And again, this is one of those characterizations similar to what we said before with Cooper in the trees, and almost a run-on sentence. I need to see the coroner's report, with the same sort of tone. Cooper here, it just seems so excited, like almost giddy, but like not giddy excited. I'm going to crack the case, but I don't know. It's just such a
He's just
subtle,
driven by curiosity.
Yeah.
The need to, and he's so smart, and he's portrayed as smart, and he's portrayed as a perfect character.
Yeah.
In the wrong hands, like, that could be sort of annoying. Like, this guy's always
no,
the game.
not
It works.
Not
It
with
just
MacLachlan.
works.
He's
like,
just
you're like,
perfect.
Oh my God,
absolutely perfect.
I just love. Again, we talked about the light. When you get that light, you're like, we're somewhere else.
Yep.
This is not just a television show at this point.
Absolutely.
So then we jump back to Big Ed's gas farm. Donna's now going to meet Ed. So we have, this is their, between James and Donna, this is how they're handing their notes back and forth. Do you like me? Check yes. You won't know.
Ed's the postman.
Mike arrives and acts like a total dick. He tells Donna to get to the sheriff's station to support Bobby. And Donna and Ed have a very nice moment where they commiserate over picking bad mates.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your take on, I guess did we really talk about
We
Mike?
haven't really talked about that much,
Yeah.
but the only other
Mike
scene we've
and Ed
really
and-
seen him is when Bobby comes into the school and he calls him Snake and talking. So we haven't really seen much. Boy, do we get enough Mike.
We get a lot of Mike. We know exactly what kind of guy.
So much Mike in this. Wearing his leather jacket, ordering Donna around, which we'll see more of. I really love the paternal relationship, it feels like, between Big Ed and Donna as well. Big Ed, man, he's just a big walking heart. That guy.
Perfect scene, because you're like, why should we care about Big Ed? Oh, because we watch how Big Ed defends people.
Yes.
And we watch how Big Ed cares, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, these great little character moments that make the plot go forward, but it's really about, everything you need to know about Mike, everything you need to know about Ed.
And you're just slowly piling up
about Donna.
information about everyone
Yes.
and their relationships over time. Like you said, it's a big big cast of characters and a lot of intricate relationships, but you're getting everything you need as you need it. So the pacing's perfect. We do learn about the Roadhouse. I think learn about it for the first time here. Donna says, I can't find James. I went to the Roadhouse to find him. She gets the note, and then the note says, meet me at the Roadhouse after 9:30.
Also cool because everyone's going to start going to the Roadhouse.
I know.
It's like every group of characters is.
But like, so that is a very important place in the show, and we're starting to see that early. Like, you're right. That's a really great way of thinking about this. Like, how much is being planted just in advance enough for you to feel like it makes sense when you get to it, as opposed to getting it all at once and being overwhelmed.
You know,
it's
a
really
bit
well
about
done.
it, or you've heard of it.
Yeah,
I love Mike. I think Mike's an underrated character. Obviously, he's awful. Like he's a terrible.
You're a big Mike head.
But I think he's great. I feel like he's definitely underrated. I love the exchange with "You're on my lot, friend," which
I'm not your
my
friend,
dad
Ed.
would say that all the time. He wouldn't say "You're on my lot, friend," but when he got mad at somebody, he would say "friend," which is like a '50s thing. I feel like when you're gonna fight someone, you're calling them friend, and oh Ed, I'm not your friend. And like that, and yeah, I sure know how to pick them, and I know how to pick them too. Like, it's just such a great exchange.
Well, that's because Nadine says these blinds are gonna
because we get to watch
aren't gonna hang themselves. But we're still not there yet. This is the second time before we get to it because he hasn't hung them yet. So
yes,
it's just,
so it's get the blinds,
hang
you
them,
haven't done your job yet,
and then she plays with them,
checking them out.
That's great.
So we're back at the sheriff's station. Cooper's going through the evidence with Truman. Cooper breaks open the diary, which was once locked, but here's a guy from out of town that's going to sort of expose all this stuff.
Yep.
And with
That's
it comes
great.
Laura's secrets. Nervous about meeting Jay tonight. Drugs are hinted at, as well as a safe deposit key. Any kind of key is always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kind of mystery at the other end of that thing. And we get a small box of chocolate bunnies.
Yeah, I mean, this just seeing Cooper and Harry getting ready for the interview in advance and kind of setting each other up. What are we going to do? This partnership is really already starting to take shape. I mean, it's just, you're setting the tone perfectly for these guys later.
And you clearly get like a Sherlock Holmes Watson thing sort of happening as well.
Absolutely. I do love that Cooper breaks the lock on the diary, and Harry just kind of gives him a shrug and just like, why not? It's like, okay, I guess that's what we're gonna do. I reading through Laura's diary the night of her death about having asparagus, like it's all this like overly boring stuff, but then she's like nervous about meeting Jay, and then he flips back and finds this like the mix of like just quotidian sort of nonsense of just what's going on that day, and then this thing that's literally going to unlock everything else. We have the baggie with the key and the residue in it and all of that. Yeah.
For me, like, I feel like that line breaks my heart. Like,
will I ever be an adult?
Asparagus for dinner again. I hate asparagus. Does this mean I'll never grow up?
Yeah.
It sets that this is a little girl. This is her diary, and it just humanizes her in a way. That's like I find that line, and then does this mean I'll never grow up? And she's dead. Like, it's so, for me, so sad and heartbreaking. And I love that little bit. Again, nervous about meeting Jay tonight is something I say very, very often. I love that you get a sense of sort of Cooper's abilities and his deductive reasonings. And when he breaks the diary, you're also like, okay, this guy is also, not afraid to break some rules.
Yeah.
As well, like as much as he is a rule follower and it's the law and all this stuff, he will do weird things or things outside of the norm, and he'll break the law. And I don't want to spoil it, but we're going to go through. And there's things that you're like, you can't do that,
right?
But
at the same time, he does. Doesn't he get? Doesn't he try to get a court order or get permission to get the safe deposit box, or no? But he goes.
I don't know. I think they just get the key.
We get the key and they go. But like he's. Yeah. Anyway, it's a small detail that he's going to break the lock on that, but in other ways, he's very much by the books.
Later on, there's going to be
much
different
happen. Stuff later. Yeah.
But anyway, so we find the key in the cocaine, and I just
he says it's cocaine, and Truman's like, that's impossible,
yes,
and
and they disagree on that.
Yes,
and you'll find out a thing or two about her as well, or whatever. But the idea is she had secrets.
Yeah.
The locked diary is going to tell us in this cocaine, and it's just setting the course.
Well, that's what he says. Like, maybe we'll both find out a few things about Laura Palmer, which is just perfect because that's all this show is just unpacking this. Yep, it's great.
And then we jump to the murder scene, which is discovered by Andy, the train car. It is a brutal scene.
Absolutely. I mean, just like you said before, we see Andy the first time and he's sobbing before he even knows who the victim is, just at the humanity and the tragedy of it. And now I can't imagine Andy actually having to witness that entire scene, which any person would break down, but Andy just absolutely cannot keep it together, except to tell Lucy, to tell Harry they didn't cry, which is so good. Just tell Harry I didn't cry as he's just sobbing. But Lucy, it's so horrible. He says, "Oh."
But you get to see like Lucy and Andy, and
I know she's trying to calm. Yeah,
and I love that they let you see this horrible scene through the most sensitive character.
Yes.
So you're allowed to really feel like the pain and the tragedy. Like if it was Truman that was discovering it, it wouldn't be the same. You know, he would be holding a lot of it in. But it's like this is a character that's
Andy
just
cannot.
so open with all of it. It's just gonna flow out of you, and I love that. I just thought that choice was really good. Back at the sheriff's station, Bobby is interrogated by Cooper, and we see how his detective skills play out. Bobby notices something on Laura's videotape.
Seeing Cooper now actually get into his investigative skills with a person. We've seen him, digging at the fingernail and looking at what's going on with Ronette, but now he's like one-on-one with Bobby, and they're so opposite in this scene. Cooper is so reserved and obviously in control. Bobby's being barely held in check by his lawyer that's there. Like for one line, he's able to like say, "Sir," but like he's again, this kinetic Bobby. He goes almost to 11, like right away over the top, basically going to climb over the table. And Cooper is just amused by him. Just like that crazy grin that Cooper has when he explains, like, "This is what's going on here, bud. I'm going to be the one that." It's just great.
Now, I also, to add some more anecdotes to the table, when they were doing that scene, because Bobby's getting more and more angry and vocal, and that's how Kyle MacLachlan was matching it, like matching the intensity and the energy, and David Lynch was like, no. Smile, like be happy. Like he made him change the tone, and with that like smiling tone, and like it totally elevates the scene. It's amazing.
I think that's incredible. I'm trying to recall if I can remember like Truman's reaction, because I'm so focused on Bobby on one side and Cooper on the other, and Cooper's grin, because he turns to Truman as he's like saying like, this is what's going on, Bobby. Like, but Truman's almost an audience surrogate in a bit, but I don't. I'm trying to remember if I can like recall his expression. Like, how is he reacting to what's going on in front of him as well? Because this is the first time he's seen Cooper like in this mode too.
Yeah.
But it's just great. It's just amazing to see this. I love the Cooper taking the scientific calculator and typing on it that he didn't do it.
Very good at typing.
He's very good at it. And just passing that over to Truman, and Truman being like, already like, how do you know that? So Cooper seeing, he knows that Bobby didn't do it, and he's figuring this out. He's one step ahead, but he also knows like he's not an innocent guy. Like there's something else going on here, and Cooper's going to get at that. Ask him, like, do you use cocaine? Did you ever? Yeah, all that. It's just great. Like what'd you think?
The videotape is awesome and surprisingly high quality for a camcorder of the era, where you can, the zoom in, and it's a perfectly focused, reflective shot of the motorcycle.
We actually don't get that yet. That's not in this scene. That's actually
it is. We don't see it.
But
Bobby sees it.
Oh, do you?
So he cues up the tape for Bobby.
Yeah,
like he's always ahead of.
I know that he's going to do it. Yeah,
right. So he's got Bobby in here, and we don't know.
We just don't get to see it.
He's using Bobby to lead him to this motorcycle J person.
Right.
He's figured out is whoever this person on the hiking trip with is who he wants to talk to.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so he cues up the tape. We don't see it, like to your point, until he reveals
okay.
at the end.
I didn't know that he would even necessarily need to. So I guess I just never realized that. I thought that the setting it up was because Cooper suspects or knows that Bobby has no idea about this tape, that he's not the third person in it, that he knows nothing about this. And that was what was going to disarm Bobby and get more to the truth of it. Not necessarily that he was also going to zoom all the way in to get to the motorcycle, which I think you're totally right. It makes sense.
He cues this scene, and then later on, when Lucy does what she does,
yes,
He's like, of course, because
Yeah. So he was
took
actually
it
like
he sets
setting
the whole
him
thing up.
setting
That's
that
why he
pocket
writes-
rocket off in the right direction to go fire and lead him to it. Okay, that's great.
Yes, I love that everyone is in the show is a suspect. It's a mystery. You're like, oh, is Bobby? Bobby's the boyfriend. It's almost always the boyfriend. And Cooper's just typing. He did not do it. Like he's just knocking off
Yep.
People left and right.
He does it again
that
later,
with
too. Yep.
James.
Yep.
He's like, he probably didn't. And I
Yep.
love that about
I love
him
it.
and his smile and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Which is great. So then we jump back to the Great Northern. This is when Audrey blows the Ghostwood deal by telling the Norwegians about Laura's murder. She'd been murdered, is something I say often, which you can't say that at the wrong crowd. You'll end up spending the night in jail. And the Norwegians leave. This is a blown deal. So what did you think about this exchange? You get a little bit more Audrey.
Yeah. Well, starting though, you get her at the desk. Why is she sitting there with Julie? She's just sitting there.
She just
messes with people
because she thinks it's fun.
Just for fun.
Just ruins her thing. And okay, Bob.
Okay, Bob. Which is
Bob.
great. That line reading is
also
great.
Say that often
when she's like putting that pencil through the squeaking styrofoam full cup, and then she says to Julie, "What would happen to pull this out?" And Julie says the exact wrong thing. You wouldn't do that. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. And maybe if she had said something else, she wouldn't have done it. But of course she would. It's just messing with her. That's just great. You're getting so much character in so few.
Yeah,
scenes.
Sherilyn Fenn is great in this. I knew her. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Wraith.
I know of it. Yeah,
she was in The Wraith with.
Was that a motorcycle thing?
It was like a revenge movie with Charlie Sheen. Is his girlfriend is killed? Is Sherilyn Fenn right? I can't remember. He comes back from the dead and he gets revenge on all the people that killed him. I think Sherilyn Fenn's alive, and it's his love interest.
We're going to review that next week.
The music cues in this scene before we jump off.
No, go for
it. Perfect. The way when she comes in and she talks about my friend Laura, she'd been murdered.
Is there something wrong, young pretty girl?
They found my friend Laura lying face down on a rocky beach, completely naked. She'd been murdered.
The way that the
Young
music
pretty girl.
cues when they look at her,
all the heads turn. I know.
All the heads turn, and it's like in cue with the music cue is perfect, and it's just such a wonderful scene.
And it is that surrealist kind of. It's funny because it's weird, and it's not weird for its own sake. Like it's just it's
very
so
funny.
Yeah. Anyway, it's great. I love it.
I find it very funny. So then we jump back to the sheriff's station. Lucy's now trying to help out because Mike and Bobby are talking, and we learn that it's a freaking biker that they're looking for. While this is going on, we're cross-cutting into Cooper interviewing Donna. She's lying. It's pretty obvious. And after he sends her home, Lucy comes in and she tries to help, but Cooper is way ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, the two... Bobby...
Multiple scenes here, but what did you think?
Yeah, I'll combine there. It was just, Bobby just thinks that he's the king of the world and get away with anything. He's talking about bashing in someone's head in a police station after having been just released or interrogated. It's like, all right, guys. But just, Lucy in the background. And when she stops typing after they stop talking and they look, and she's just like, kind of expression on her face is fantastic. We have Major Briggs in the vestibule there, and he says, "Son, if you need a sympathetic ear," and it's like, I don't need already, what is their relationship? How does this work?
It's very hard to read Briggs, right? Because you had said, do they tiptoe around it? But this scene clearly knows
he's not.
Son is so disrespectful to him, and he's like, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yelling. And they paid for that lawyer to, he's such a jerk.
Right. You got Donna, who are you protecting, and all of that, and her obvious lies she's going through. And a hiker came, a female hiker with a backpack, and we never even got her name. It's like,
I think Laura Flynn Boyle is so good in this.
Yes,
scene. It's probably one of my favorite performances of her. I'm not a huge fan of the Donna storyline as we go, but I feel like she's excellent.
Yeah,
and I love finding out that Cooper is always ahead.
Yeah,
of course he knows.
Yeah,
and this is when Lucy comes in, as we said.
Yes,
and she's like, and she takes forever to get out the thing that she's just typing.
But she also is self-aware of that because Cooper's like, Yes. And she's like, okay, yeah. Like she catches herself. She knows that she does this, which I think is even more endearing. And he's like, Cooper's already a step ahead and says, they're looking for a biker. How did you know? Yeah, how did you know? It's great.
Yeah. Perfectly paused, crisp image of a reflected biker, a motorcycle within the iris of Laura Palmer. And then we get a great cutaway again to the same
Matching
bike.
shot, yeah.
And we see a very sad James holding something. I mean, Dwayne Dunham, who did the editing on this, is just so good.
Yeah.
He's a great editor. He had worked on Return of the Jedi as well, which is interesting because before Dune, David Lynch had been offered Return of the Jedi.
I was asked by George to come up to see him and talk to him about directing, which would be the third Star Wars. And I had next door to zero interest. But I always admired George. You know, George is a guy that does what he loves, and I do what I love. The difference is what George loves makes hundreds of billions of dollars. He took me upstairs, and he showed me these things called Wookiees. And now this headache is getting stronger.
I don't even want to know what
no
Jabba
thanks.
the Hutt would have looked like. But he was the editor on Blue Velvet, Twin
great.
Peaks, Wild at Heart, The Return. He directs some of these seasons.
It's artful without calling more attention to itself than it needs to. Like it does its job so well, but it's
I
beautiful.
love those cuts. You know, picture to picture. You know,
Matching
you get
shots of that one.
the truck to the truck. Like it's
And we know where James is, that this is the same location as the picnic without even having to say anything else. Like it's just shot really well for that. So sad James. But now then after that we get like a complete change in tone where the Norwegians Norwegians are, I know this is a small detail. What I like about it is in the background we have not only the music cues, like almost polka music. So it's like this, you know, setting the tone of this very set. This show is a literal melodrama. It is a drama set to music. The music is conveying the emotions of the scenes. So you get, you know, that beautiful score by Angelo Badalamenti, but then you also get these silly things, like you said before, with the Norwegians looking at each other. And then this is like a polka music in the background, but you just keep hearing Julie in the background, and all she's saying is the Norwegians are leaving. Like she's running around the chicken with her head cut off, and who's she talking to? She's like, the Norwegians are leaving. I just think it's a great detail of how that's going.
I love that.
And
I love that.
Audrey's look of self-satisfaction of like, I set this thing up, it worked perfectly, and look what just happened. I did it. This is great. It's a great moment.
right.
And then
Just wants her dad's attention.
that's all that it is throughout. It's so painfully obvious. But then again, tonal shift right back again.
No, yeah. Then we jump to the train car. We get Cooper and Truman examining the scene. It's just horrific. There's a bloody rag. You see a hammer. There's a torn piece of paper with the words "Fire, walk with me" on it. And Cooper reasons whoever has the other half of the necklace is involved. Oh yeah, because there's like a mound of dirt with one half of a necklace on it.
With a necklace. Correction, half a necklace. Yeah.
Half a necklace, yeah.
Which is great. I mean,
a heart.
we do start the scene again with looking at the trees, the treetops with the fog. And we look out, we set the scene where we had previously seen Andy sobbing and explaining it, but we are doing a panning shot across. And on the train tracks, we have a group of townsmen, all with rifles, standing there. Then we see the police officer with their bloodhounds and then coming into the train car. It's just like, it's setting up this tableau as you get into it of like how everyone's reacting to it and the seriousness of it. But then we get into this interior. You hear the water dripping in the background. We have just the flashlight in the darkness highlighting different areas. We see the bloody rag. We see the hammer with blood on it with like a piece of plastic next to it. We see the mound of dirt with the lock it in the fire walk with me. It's just, yeah, again, imagining Andy's having to see all this, how he even held up as well as he did is incredible. Honestly.
Just the idea of "Fire, walk with me" in what looks like blood
on newsprint,
paper, and the mound of dirt. Weird.
It's weird,
dark, and ritualistic, and just it.
But who has the other half of the necklace, Eric?
Great cutaway. We get a cutaway right to that half of the necklace. I mean, the cuts are great. Back to Sad James. Just for a minute before we I mean, what else can you say about Sad James? He's got
just
the other
Sad
half of the
James
necklace.
being sad.
He's connected to this, and Cooper, as you said, like theorizes like whoever has the other half of this necklace is clearly involved. At the Great Northern, we meet Audrey and Ben's family.
Yep.
They have you find out that there's a brother, a special needs boy named Johnny. You meet Sylvia, who is very distant, and Johnny is just devastated because Laura is not showing up today.
Yeah. I mean, just seeing Johnny in the full Indian headdress, banging his head repeatedly
banging his
against the large dollhouse model it's not of their house. Like, it's not the Great Northern, is it? It's just...
I think it was...
Yeah, I'm just like trying to draw attention. I'm trying like the connection between like the Overlook Hotel and the scale model.
Okay.
But I don't think it is that. I do like the reverse shot from inside the dollhouse with seeing Johnny coming at it and all the furniture like moving inside is really great. But yeah, we're finding out more about Laura. Like, we are learning new things about her that she, was taking care of, on a regular basis, helping take care of Johnny as well. So there's just so many layers to her.
There's a kindness to her.
Oh, yeah.
She's helping people. And you see how, again, everyone in this town is affected by her death, including Johnny. Like, he's also feeling this. And I love the way that you see their family and you see the lack of love that is in this house. Like, the mom doesn't go to talk to the son. The help does. And, like, it's such a nice contrast to what we get with the Hayward family. And we see some of that with the Palmer family. But, like, it's just an awful situation that's going on. And, again, more evidence or what have you that Ben Horn's probably not a really good guy.
He might not be a good dude.
Isn't that good.
Yeah.
So it's just real interesting.
Yep.
Now we get to one of my favorite scenes. We go to the bank, and we're going to go into the safe to deposit box. Cooper and Truman are going to examine it, and they're going to find a copy of Flesh World, $10,000, and we get our connection now from Laura to Ronette, who had a sex ad inside, and we see a photo of Leo's truck. So now we're connecting to the big bad that we have not met yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's starting off in this conference room. We have the deer head on the table for whatever reason. It fell off and it's just laying there. So just this weird like setup. Yeah, but as they kind of dig into that, again, Cooper, I'm going to take your reading of him being excited by his inquisitive, like just excited about, trying to figure out what's going on. But he has that grin when he pulls out Flesh World and he sees that a page is marked.
Oh, it's intoxicating. It's a page that's marked. He's just excited.
But
it's a clue. It's a mystery.
Yeah.
It's like, what's
also
going to be back here?
Kind of off-putting and creepy in a way. Like, I just wonder. I love.
Oh, see,
I love
I
Cooper.
have the exact opposite.
I love him. I think
to
he's
that.
fantastic. I think there's a nuanced character that has so much going on. But I wonder how it read. It still reads to me like in both directions. Like, is he all there? Is he kind of crazy? Is he sadistic in a way? I don't actually mean that, but I don't. I'm just
I
like,
definitely didn't get any of that.
You can get some of this. And I don't know if it's with distance. I'm kind of seeing that as opposed to you, who kind of like feel this much more deeply.
Genuine curiosity and like. It's a mystery. What is behind? It's a door that's unlocked, or it's a key, or it's like there's a page that's been marked. Why was it marked? That's exciting.
Yeah,
is the fact that it's marked and now there's a new clue or there's a new path. But like you said sadistic or no?
No. But I don't actually think that. I'm just kind of pointing in that direction because I don't actually believe that that's the way that he is.
I found that, and that's in my note. The Cooper's joy about a page that's marked is intoxicating.
Yeah.
Like, that endeared me to him so much. Like, all those moments of just pure joy. And he has that for everything, whether it's the perfect cup of coffee or pie or a page that's marked in a porno mag is all sort of interesting and sort of wonderful. And the money, that's a lot of Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
That's also
but I wonder, I think maybe that's the thing that feels off to me is we have Andy, who is nothing but a big heart, and he just has the full humanity and everything just hits him completely deeply. But then we have Cooper, who is, I don't know this necessarily, I'm just kind of off the top of my head, he's kind of in it for the puzzle of it. He wants to solve this. But is he maybe it's the disconnect between what's actually going on here. Like when he's digging under Laura Palmer's fingernail, this is the a tragic death of a young person who's affecting the lives of everyone in the town to some extent. But he's smiling and excited because this is the next crack in the case. Like, is that the part that maybe is feeling a little disconnected to me, of like the weight and seriousness of it versus the thrill of the case and solving it and the answers?
I just think that there's a purity to his curiosity that is not held back by, cultural norms, that you would not be excited about a page that's marked in it, but he would.
Yeah.
But it's not like that he's disrespectful or
no. I don't even think
like we see that later with the auto. But for him, it's like a pureness, and I think David Lynch is like that.
Yeah.
Where he gets interested in these dark things and he gets interested in these light things, and there's like a sort of a joy to the thing.
Yeah, and I
don't know.
I don't mean it as thinking like, oh, he's callous and he's completely disregarding it. It's almost the fact that it's such a pure joy is blinding him to everything else. Like it is a single dimension as opposed to the full dimension of the reality of what's going on. Yeah, I just think it's interesting in that way. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see more as we go. Maybe this will mean something more to me.
But this is such a great scene
it
because one of the best cuts ever is we get that shot of Ronette, the ad, the sex ad. Now we're connected to her, and then we just pan over and we see Leo's truck
with Leo standing in front of it.
Yeah, in the magazine. Well, he's like in shadow, right?
Yeah, you can't really tell who it is, but yeah.
Then it like fades into the house.
Cross-cutting to it.
Finally gonna meet Leo.
Do you know
Cooper doesn't make that connection, but we do because we've seen Leo's truck before, and I love that.
I think it's that cross-cut's amazing. Do we know what Leo's ad was in the sex magazine?
I'm imagining he will run drugs for you. Or
I would imagine that too. I mean, we
something like
later know where things are going, so I would imagine that's the case.
I'm thinking it's a drug running thing.
But it was just interesting that it was, in this section of personals that was clearly about sex, and that's, Flesh World being that whole thing. Just anyway, yeah, great. It was a great cut.
So then we cut over to the Johnson home. So we see
here we go.
Again, in the Johnson home, I feel like I don't think at this point we see their addition. But we get to see their house, and
we can see the studs that it's not finished.
A very abusive person. So he's yelling at Shelley about his what cigarettes she's smoking.
Yeah.
And I find he's just a delight. I mean, as a awful monster. Like, he's just such a perfect bad guy. He's an early favorite. If you're going to find, if you think that someone's going to kill Laura, it's probably this guy because he's just so awful.
No doubt.
What's your take on because again, we've heard about him multiple times, and now we know he's connected to Laura Palmer, and now we know he's taking ads out in Flesh World.
I mean,
Flesh World also is what a great name.
It is a great name.
Skin mag.
Yeah. Jesus, as he's figuring out, there's two different brands of cigarettes in the ashtray that's sitting there, and tells Shelley to come over to help him out with something, and she's like, "Well, I'm trying to watch the news about they've found that looking at the train car and everything." Just the dread throughout that, what's coming, and when he says that he's gonna snap her neck like a twig if she smokes another brand of cigarettes again. The two things he expects is when he comes home, the house is clean, and I mean clean. Yeah. And then one brand of cigarettes. This guy,
you smoke one brand of cigarettes. Yeah, he's just awful.
I mean, the character is absolutely awful.
We get another. Go on.
This actor is probably my least favorite actor technically in this show.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he matches what this character is. This character is.
I disagree. I think he's
maybe just character. and I'm trying to remember because I've only it's been 20 years since I've seen this. So this is the first scene I'm kind of seeing Leo Johnson. I know there's a lot more and it gets different. Yeah, so it may just be the pilot sort of thing.
Of him.
Okay.
Okay. So then we jump back to, unless you have anything else.
No, go for it.
Oh, I forgot to say there's a really cool moment in this as well that you get some exposition. Although it's stuff we see a news report about Ronette that Shelley is watching. So we get some more details, we get some pictures, and then we see Leo's reaction to her watching that. And it's even more evidence that he is connected to this horrible crime.
Yeah.
It's like, turn it off, like whatever, he starts yelling about.
Right.
Back at Big Ed's, we learn that Ed and Norma are having an affair. Again, everyone in this town is having an affair. They agree to go to the roadhouse, and we get Nadine finally and her drape runners. She's putting them back and forth. It's just such a great moment of Nadine that finally pays off.
Yeah, I mean, it pays off more whenever we see like what she's actually doing. But she's the swish, 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 swish of the drapes is great. Now we're really seeing like the love story between Norma and Ed, which is
which is very sad.
I love
it.
it.
The reason she's calling too is because she's hurt about Laura. Because Laura, I don't remember if we know at this point, but she is connected to the double R. And so it's, again, her death is affecting everybody in this town.
Yeah.
But they have a great love story.
Yep.
All right, so the town meeting, again, perfect writing. This is, we take a moment to reinforce who all these characters are, how they're connected. We meet some new ones and it's all done via Cooper and Harry.
Mm-hmm.
The new characters that we're going to meet here are the mayor and the log lady of note.
Yeah.
Everyone else we sort of know, but we can, again, reinforcing who's this, how they connected to. It's just such a nice little scene.
You get
what do you think about the town meeting?
You get another nice moment of Cooper being excited to learn the name of the rabbit that he saw as a snowshoe. He's
again,
so
for,
childlike, just exuberance about that is great. I love that Harry describes Josie as the most beautiful woman in the state. Like, kind of tipping his hat, but like catching himself maybe a little bit, which is really great. We hear that Andrew Packard died in a boating accident. He had brought Josie back from Hong Kong, and she got everything. So that's where now we're really getting it all spelled out how this is working, and that Ben Horn kind of glad-handing, the dandy glad-handing, it's about the land and not anything else. That's really great. We do get to meet the log lady, which is fantastic. Another one of these characters that's going to be amazing. But Harry says, what's her name? And Harry's like, we just call her the log lady. Does Harry actually not know her name?
No, he knows it. It's just that's what everyone calls her.
It's just a funny thing to say there.
She's played by Catherine Coulson, who she'd worked on Eraserhead, and she appeared in some Lynch short films. But at one time, she was married to Jack Nance, who plays Pete Martell.
The mayor is interesting just because I don't know what to make of him other than, he's just like an old man who is not there and can't
clearly whoever's running the show is not in charge.
But like for him, like he's not on, like he's not there, because even as Cooper kind of explains, like here's the situation, I have to hold back some details, but it's part of an ongoing case and and the mayor's just like
brings in Teresa Banks,
but the mayor's just like not there even registering any of it, which is
he doesn't even know if the microphone's on.
Yeah,
like, that's clearly just for fun.
Yeah.
I love that character. I feel like he's so entertaining, that whole scene with him just not even knowing. They just sort of shuffle him off. One thing that I also think that's funny about Cooper is that he gets up there and he says, by the way, the killer, they're looking for a killer of Teresa Banks. And by the way, the killer is probably someone you know. But I don't want a witch hunt.
I know, it's it's such a funny. You should definitely get your pitchforks and go after, but at the same time,
you know who the killer is, and they'll strike again at night. These crimes do happen at night, but I don't want a witch hunt, so just keep it to yourself.
Amazing.
No, and I can't speak highly enough of like what a great way to say we're about halfway through, or maybe a little bit more halfway through this movie. We've introduced so many people, remind the audience in a way that feels natural with a character who's new to the town and a character who knows everyone in the town. Like, oh yeah, that guy's Ben Horn. This person is the log lady. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
We talk about the log lady, but we didn't talk about how she's just flicking lights on and off, which sort of is like the light flicking that you had pointed out with Laura Palmer.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, so clearly David Lynch loves the images of flashing lights. But it's such a weird introduction. We call her the log lady is weird, but her just hitting the light switches on and off is
I guess. I mean, it's a good way to get everyone's attention, so I think it did its job. But I think you got it. Nothing is a mistake. Everything has meaning, even if he didn't intend it at the time. And I think you're right.
Nothing is real. Everything
the flashing
is permitted, Dan. That's
absolutely.
Okay.
So we got the flashing lights, and then
we cut away to a transition state, which is the famous traffic light that you'll see in Twin Peaks when you hear the wind, and it takes the full cycle of the light. So you see from green to yellow to red while the wind sound is playing. And I wanted to stop on this because as a kid, I feel like this did it for me. This image and the sound, no one does this. No one takes
Yeah.
that much time in a show to show a light. And just the symbolism of the thing, of the town coming to a halt, it was just beautiful. I don't know what it is about, but I would think about that all the time because I would corner friends and just talk about it endlessly. Be like, I love the part like with the street light, and they'd look at me like I was a complete lunatic. But it's wonderful, and we go back to it a few times. This is, I think, the first time we see it. We see and again, it's the full cycle of like, there were studio notes of like, do we really have to? Can we speed this up? Like we're gonna go through the whole okay. Because later on we just see the red light, but I love it. I love this part of it. It's just so cool.
It does really set a mood, and it's very like you said. We've said in the beginning, with the title sequence and everything, the pacing of this, it just takes his time, and it's not for its own sake. It is setting the mood. It's setting the tone. I mean, I didn't read too much into the symbolism of it as well, but it's swinging in the wind, and it's like precariously swinging there, and it does everything coming to a stop.
It's immediately preceded by Cooper saying these crimes happened at night, and it's night, and now we're going to a stop, and it's very cool. Anyway, so then
it's curfew time,
guys, and no one's going to be obeying that curfew.
No.
Next, we go to Donna's house, and we get to meet Donna's mother, Eileen, and Harriet, one of her two sisters. Spoiler, there may be another sister. Donna overhears her mother and father talking about Laura, and she learns the police are looking for whoever has the other half of the necklace. Donna decides to sneak out and warn James, and as she escapes, a very drunken Mike and Bobby arrive looking for her. When they learn she's gone, they too head to the roadhouse.
Wait, so you think Bobby and Mike were drunk in this scene? Like, what gives you that indication? So when we were talking before about like Bobby's the coolest, and wanted to emulate him, and I kind of have a different take on the matter.
The car surfing,
the car surfing, man, it just doesn't. I love it. Please do not get me wrong. It is not cool in any shape or form. It is so self-conscious in a way that I think really works.
He's just having fun.
I don't think this is a time for Bobby having fun right now. Like, he's been interrogated by the FBI and the sheriff. His love of his life has been murdered. Actually, no. More importantly, the woman who loved him, he thinks was murdered. Anyway, it's one of the things where like now we're starting to see the dynamic really between Mike and Bobby. We're seeing even more Mike than we ever wanted to see before. This guy is a real winner. The bonehead boyfriend is great. But let's start at the beginning. I absolutely love Harriet. Sitting there, we open with her talking to Donna about the poetry she's written. And as a early teen writing terrible poetry, I'm not saying her poetry is actually bad. It's whatever. But I can absolutely sympathize with that. But like, this is the important thing. Is the blossom of the evening, or blossom of the evening, or the full flower of the evening, which is really great. But how do you feel about the sisterly relationship was established so well so quickly in such a small scene? I really love Donna's family, and we'll come to it later. The conversation between Donna and Doc Hayward in the car, which we'll get to, but I just love the way they're setting up this family dynamic and this kind of gothic nature of Donna kind of standing on the stairs, eavesdropping to everything that's going on. There's not a whole lot to like dig into, I think, in this scene, but just setting up the family is great.
Yeah, I like this scene a lot for that reason, because you can see how much they love each other and how much they love their children, and it's such like a good contrast to the horns that we've seen before.
Yeah.
One moment thing to say about Warren Frost, who plays Doc Hayward. He's one of the best characters. I think he's such a great actor, and clearly Mark Frost is in it, so it's his father. But what a wonderful joy to be able to cast your dad, and then he's actually really good.
Yeah.
And he's not terrible.
Really good.
And then everyone's like, oh, God,
Yeah.
we got to do another scene with this guy's dad. But he's great. I love that scene and the way that they talk about Donna and Donna listening, and it's all very much like Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew type mystery going on. And the whole thing with Mike and Bobby. That is one of the funniest scenes where he's like, Mike, are you drinking tonight? He's like, no, it's all right. Bobby's doing most of the driving, and then there's
Most of the driving, yeah,
him
that's
just,
great.
With the beer
Surfer.
and everything. It's another instance where he gets called Snake. But it's like it's a build up. We're now going off to the Roadhouse, and multiple people are heading there, which was very cool. And that's where we end up.
Yeah.
So then we.
Well, the last thing with Mike too is just that the menace of Mike is really starting to come through even more. Every time we see him, there's just more of it. Like the first time we see him and Donna interacting at the gas farm, and the way he treated her there. But here, Doc Hayward has him stand out in the porch and wait while he goes to get Donna. But in that, whatever it is, 30 seconds, he decides now's a good time to light up a cigarette. So he's like, has a puff before he opens the door and throws the cigarette. Just doesn't care.
Kind of respect, I think he calls Doc Hayward sir or whatever. But you can you can tell he's just not a. But
he's like
a good dude.
Don't worry about that. We'll find her. You don't have to worry about that. But just this vaguely threatening, menacing thing that he says to Doc Hayward right to his face.
A toxic fella. We also get that Donna and her sister set. She's got to put air in the tires. And in exchange, Harriet is not going to, is going to cover for her. Harriet does not last long at all. Yeah.
One question. That's as far as she got.
She just sort of points her out. So then we cut over to the Roadhouse. We've got Cooper and Harry learn that Donna is missing, and they put out an all points. Mike and Bobby arrive, and so does Donna. All of this seems to be part of Cooper's plan to have Donna and Bobby lead them to the mysterious Jay biker.
Yeah. It's great. We get more of Lucy and Harry interacting here, which is really great. So, just setting up this APB. But again, we get this Cooper is at least one step ahead of everybody else. He's just sitting there whittling, and he knows this is what's going to happen. He's just ready for, Donna's going to show up. How else is she going to lead us to Jay? Really great.
It's the first Cooper thumbs up too, which is worth pointing out. He does the thumbs up.
Yeah.
The thing about the whittling is so cool. They mention the lights. I've already told about how I feel about the lights, but in a town where a yellow light still means slow down. And when Mike and Bobby show up, I love he's like, there's liable to be trouble this evening because he knows they're looking for that freaking biker. So yeah, Cooper's always well ahead of everyone else.
And then, Harry calls in for backup to have backup come, and then he says, actually make that 2. And the look on Cooper's face is like, yeah, that's right. It's like, I like the subtle, just approving nature of Cooper. He really is starting to trust Harry.
They have a great friendship
throughout this.
I feel like it's
really great.
Solidified at this point. Yeah.
Already. It's only been less than 24 hours because, at the end of this, we'll see the full 24 hours having gone by.
All right. So we're going to cut to inside the Roadhouse. We get Julie Cruz performing. Norman, Ed, they share a secret love, and we learn about her ex, Hank, who happens to be in jail for murder. Also, as we mentioned, Donna arrives. So then Mike sees her and a fight breaks out. Ed's brought into it, and then Donna escapes with Joey Paulson. It's a crazy circumstance going on here at the Roadhouse.
Yeah, I'll say whenever Mike and Bobby arrive, there's this, I think it's like an alto sax note that plays as a musical cue. It's like this kind of twisting note that recurs throughout. It's one of those sounds that is the most Twin Peaks to me. But it recurs throughout the show. But it's just that one moment, and it just changes the tone. Everything, is about to go off. Then it goes right into Julie Cruz singing. It's nice to see the read through the lyrics as well. It's it's a really moody and down tempo song, but it's also inspired. It's about love and falling in love. Are we falling?
Yeah, it's the theme song with lyrics.
Right. Now we get the lyrics on top of it. What is so funny to me is that you have this Roadhouse that's full of bikers, rapt attention listening to Julie Cruz singing this song, people dancing, couples are dancing, but you have all these bikers in the leather jackets. Like, they're not just like talking and music's playing in the background. They are watching her. And it's just it's a strange
the whole thing is very
like
strange
this.
too, because these kids are in high school and they have
Yeah.
no problem getting served. Like Mike, when he sees Donna,
None.
he's holding a beer. Like the rules in Twin Peaks, it's a small town, but like apparently kids can just go and just order without too much.
Doc Hayward is just like, have you guys been drinking? Not like you've been drinking and accusing. It's just like, anyway, don't drink too much, I guess. So yeah, we get this. We get again more detail of this relationship between Norma and Ed, and they seem like teenagers. The two of them, they're just obviously smitten with each other. It's really nice. But we do get this additional piece of information. So we have Big Ed with Nadine, and we don't really know what's going on there. But then you see also that Norma has a man of her own who's in the joint. So I guess there's setting up a little bit of foreshadowing of like being scared of when he gets out of parole. But yeah, we got Donna coming into the roadhouse. She rode Harriet's bike there, parks it, and goes into the roadhouse. And immediately Mike is on her. So she's looking there for James, but instead finds the exact opposite of what she wants. And the way that he just grabs onto her and manhandles her throughout this, again, this just threatening violence that's about to bubble up. But who tries to come to the rescue?
Yeah, we got Big Ed jumping up there
Big Ed.
and helping out, which is nice. And you mentioned like with the Hank stuff, again, it's like with Leo, there's great foreshadowing. So we're going to hear about Hank before we ever meet Hank, and we know that he's sort of a bad dude. When Mike is, I only noticed this maybe the last couple times I've watched it, is when Mike's grabbing Donna, he's yelling, "You and Laura, you're exactly the same. You're exactly the same," which I had never really picked up on. Which is interesting to think about, especially as we go forward. And Bobby's
I didn't even
Mr.
hear him
Monkey
say that.
Wrench line. And that's the other thing. These are high school kids. They are not afraid to fight adults, even if that adult has to sell them gas at some point, because there's probably not too many gas stations in town. But it's a very dramatic fight with the music. You get that bit about Joey Polson as well. Harry's like, "Hey, it's a J." He's like, "It's not him."
Yeah.
He's always one.
Right.
He's just definitely a flawless character.
He just knows.
Cooper,
absolutely.
as Joey Polson sort of escorts Donna out there, Cooper and Harry pursue them through the woods, but they lose them. Donna meets up with James, and they realize they are in love. We learn about some of Laura's secrets, that James had last seen her on the corner of Sparkwood and 21. We also learned that Bobby killed a guy. They bury the locket together and are ultimately caught by Truman and Cooper.
There's something about this scene whenever they go over the covered bridge and away from the camera, and there's the way the lights are set up, so it's like in silhouette behind. This is just me, but for some reason it really feels like a doorway. Like this moment has always felt like this is the moment where things go off in a different direction. I don't know why I feel that way, but just one of those intuitive feelings. It just feels like a doorway to me, or just like a dividing line. Something is happening there. I do love the line, "Do you think they spotted us?" Because they're 20 feet behind them at night with headlights on. But I don't know what Cooper's turns to Harry. Harry says, "You think they spotted us?" And Cooper says, "Give me a donut."
Yes. There's the first mention, by the way, of donuts that, or at least I have that in my notes. First talk about donuts and how important donuts become.
But it's just a non sequitur.
Yeah, I think he just wants a donut. Like he knows that they've lost. The way I always think of this stuff is he didn't necessarily lose. Like he's allowing this to happen because he thinks that maybe he's going to lead.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to where he wants to go. I love that line about the donut. It is sort of like absurd and funny. And again, it's like, not answering his question, but I never read more into it than it just being a very great.
I guess,
and you get more of the joy of the trees now. And the thing that I love so much
is
when he talks about the trees, now that he knows that it's a Douglas fir, he's like, "Smell those trees, those Douglas fir trees." And he's so proud that now he can put a name to these wonderful trees.
Yeah.
And it just says so much about his character that I love. And I also think it's really cool and it demonstrates like the honor of Cooper, that he takes immediate accountability for losing Donna. Like Harry feels bad. He's like, "I told Doc Hayward his daughter was safe." And he's like, no, he's not someone that's going to, skirt responsibility, or, he's going to own it, which, sort of makes him a better character. first mention, like when we finally get Donna and James having their secret meeting, we first learn about Sparkwood in 21, which is the corner of the street where he last saw Laura Palmer, which was also almost the name of this podcast. I'm going to be doing that a lot because there was a very long list of what this podcast was going to be called. Sparkwood in 21 was the original. Fun fact, if you ever get on my Wi-Fi network, my phone has been called Sparkwood, and my iPad, when I had one, was 21. Little fun fact for you, Dan.
Oh, that is fun.
One line that was also just sticks out is like when he's talking about Laura and he's saying like she was a different person and how she was said there are things about me even Donna doesn't know, and you just get this sense that she's living this complete other life that even though James and Donna were so close to her, they really weren't. We also get a lot of James, which is going.
Oh, James.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of that.
What I think was interesting too is the conversation between Donna and James, and he's recounting what had happened that night. How he doesn't have an alibi. That's why he's scared to go to the police. That's why Donna wants to get the locket because you have the other half of the locket and no alibi. But he's explaining like what had happened. It's been a long time since I've seen Fire Walk with Me, but they do that scene.
Yeah, you see that
in Fire Walk with Me, right? So, and obviously, listeners coming along with us, maybe this is your first time through and you're watching it for the first time and listening to us after the fact. So I don't want to get into that. But the way that he describes it and then the way that it is actually presented in Fire Walk with Me, it's like to have the two things in my mind at the same time. It just feels, it's so much more powerful and so tragic.
One more note on this that I just wanted to point out. And again, this is a mystery. Everyone's a suspect. And Cooper is always there immediately losing interest in anyone that may be a suspect, like especially where they're getting James, and then Donna's there, and he didn't do anything, and Cooper's like he probably didn't. He just completely
he says she's probably right.
Oh yeah, he's probably right. Yeah.
She's probably. What's great is they do decide to get rid of the locket, and Donna says, "I'll get rid of it." And James is like, "No, I'll hide it," and they bury it there under a mound of earth, and then put the rock on top of that, and so that's ready to set themselves up for what comes next. But yeah, this is just great. The pained look on their faces as they're both like realizing their feelings for each other. And then I do love that James says, "I'm sorry." And then he says, "No, I take it back. I'm not." That scenes are great. But it does then tip over into that soap opera melodrama of, "Oh, James, which has to be very self-conscious in the way that it's doing that. But I still like it.
So then we
It's
get
great.
James is then placed in jail alongside Mike and Bobby. Doc Hayward takes Donna home, but not before telling her he is thankful for her. At the station, we see the greatest donut setup in history, the policeman's dream. And Truman recommends the Great Northern to Cooper, who is off to finally get some sleep.
Yeah, what's your read on James when he's getting walked into the holding area? He's put into it. Yeah, he's put into the separate cell. But I can't tell because it's shot between the bars. Mike and Bobby are in one cell across a hallway, like a walkway there, and then James on the other side behind bars, and it's shot between the bars. And I keep reading his expression different as both being like full of rage and defiant, or being absolutely terrified of them.
I feel like I always read it as him being like a cornered animal, more afraid, like, how am I going to deal with these guys? I mean, I guess I never saw it as I want to get you guys, I hate you. But there is like that tension.
There's a moment there.
Like, this was the girl you were with's boyfriend that you've been cheating on him. He's kind of a lunatic. They're like the jocks at school that are probably always teased him his entire life through middle school. So there's probably a lot of that buried down in James's psyche. But I always saw it as him being more afraid,
just being the
even though he's like certainly a character that's the biker, and he's not gonna back away from a fight. I always took it more as a fear thing.
Yeah, for me, it kind of like would change depending on how I was looking at it. But definitely, the cornered animal still has that kind of fight in it as well. So maybe that.
And plus, they bark at him, and that whole barking thing.
They sure do.
But yeah, give me your thoughts on this, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in here.
That scene, like I alluded to before, this is the scene between Donna and her dad sitting in this front seat of the car together, and instead of Doc Hayward, letting her know, this, what you did was crazy or it's wrong, whatever. Instead, he says, after everything that's been going on, I'm sure you know what this did for your mother and I. And that was it. That's all he needed to tell.
Yeah, when
her
he also says
about
we're
admonishing
so
her.
thankful to have a daughter.
But
like
then no, that's the only part he needed to say to admonish her. And then the rest was very, okay, now what are we going to do? Got to go get your bike. We're going to put the air in the tire for Harry because he said you're going to. It's just a lovely scene. And the two of them together, absolutely, it just, you can see that relationship. It's beautiful. I really like that scene. It's just such a small scene.
No, it's the greatest thing. And you watch it as like a kid, like you would have just killed to hear that from your parents. Like it's like the ultimate thing. Like any other
Absolutely.
person, like you're saying, would have just yelled at them for like, wow, how could you possibly do that? Blah, blah, blah. It was like basically,
Yeah.
he's so thankful because this other girl that they've known their whole life is now gone.
Well, that's something he says is I'm so thankful to have a daughter like you, which implies as opposed to. Like,
Yeah.
do you read
Well-
anything more into it than that, or just being like, I'm thankful to have a daughter like you, just like that's great, and not that other part of
I mean-
unlike some other people.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. The way
Okay.
that you're
Yeah.
implying, anyway. Like, there's
Yeah.
something wrong with Laura, or Laura almost brought it on herself.
Yeah,
kind of
maybe,
thing.
yeah.
I don't take that
don't
at
know.
all. I think it's
Yeah, I wouldn't see
he's
that from
just
him
so-
anyway.
He's just so thankful to have her. I think it's just
Yeah.
an expression of love and not
Absolutely.
anything
Okay. Yep.
against anyone else. But God damn those
No, it's-
donuts.
Those donuts, man. What
That is
kills
the
me though is
greatest thing. I have dreamt about recreating that. I think we did. I think my sister and her boyfriend, we had watched this together as kids. And I feel like when The Return came back, she may have set up a table in a similar fashion, but it's the greatest
Oh,
thing in
that's
the world.
delightful.
And this scene is so much fun. The conversation about the Great Northern, and he's like, I just want, something that's reasonably priced and clean. And then Harry goes back and they go back and forth for a while. And when he agrees to it and he walks away and he's on his tape recorder talking to Diane, and the look that Harry, that like laugh when he hears him, is so perfect. It's like these guys are now really friends, and he's like amused by Cooper. It's just such a great moment.
Yeah, it's great. We get a little bit more too of the relationship between Lucy and Andy. Just like making sure there's decaf coffee there because Andy's been drinking so much caffeinated coffee lately.
Yeah.
It's just really
And
great.
she gets extra
and it also
jelly
like
donuts for Cooper, which is very nice.
yeah, which is really good. I do like also Harry's like hang up the phone and no listening, which is great. So like, has there been something in the past that I need to tell her about? Like, is she? I think it's really adorable. So like you said earlier about all of this, we get so much with so little effort. Like, not so much so little effort. There's a lot of effort into this.
No, but
so
not a
well
lot of
crafted.
dialogue.
So
I mean, you don't
not a lot
need
of
a lot
dialogue.
of words.
Very just a couple of looks is just enough to give us so much so quickly. Even though everything's like paced so slowly, it gives you that time to absorb all of this. I think it's great. The barking though. The
barking is crazy because of the sound design behind it. Like, it's not
Yes.
even just barking.
It doesn't
And then
match exactly
switches
right.
to like another voice. Like, is that even Bobby's voice at one point?
Right.
And then it goes back into Bobby's voice. And it's just insane. And it's like
It's
these are just
unsettling.
wild dogs. And it's again, it's like you've never seen anything like that. So like, what is happening? Why is he doing this? But it all makes sense to me, and I love it. Yeah, it's weird, and it's just
And
the
it ends with Bobby like on his face this crazy smile of like bloodlust. Like
Yeah, he
he
looks like
is
a lunatic.
ready to go. It's great. It's
when you least expect it. Yeah, it's great. I like the also the Cooper's line of "tomorrow comes early" is something that I find myself saying over and over again. It's found itself to things that I've done.
It's a good one.
So then we go back to where it all started. So we're back at the Packard home where Harry meets up with Josie, and we learn that they're having an affair. And at the same time, Catherine is watching and reports it to Ben Horn. Everyone is sleeping with everyone at this point. I mean,
It's great. I love this is the first time we're seeing Josie and Harry together, especially in this way. But they already convey a chemistry immediately. It's just these two actors just do it beautifully. They feel so easy together, and we find it hasn't been that long that they've actually been kind of seeing each other, or at least acknowledging their feelings for each other. But it already feels like a really well-established relationship, and they very nice.
I was
couple
very
together.
very surprised the first time I watched it. I can remember that they were together. Like that wasn't something that
Yeah.
I had picked up on. But then when you watch it again,
Yep.
you're like, oh yeah, the way he talks about her in the meeting. But you're right,
Yep.
and she's already. We haven't seen her a lot in this pilot. Just a couple of times we saw them fight over the shutting down of the mill, and we see some of her
Yep.
her dialogue in the beginning, but not a lot. And I feel like when you meet her
No.
this way through Harry, you're disarmed to, like, you just sort of are drawn into her, and she becomes like a character. Okay, I know I trust Harry. Now I know I trust Josie. And then clearly Catherine is a villain. Clearly Ben is a
Yep.
villain, and now they're working together against her. And it's just like so nice to see it sort of play out like that. And the whole Catherine thing is cool because when she calls, you're like, you hear the voice, you're like, that's Ben. And then you're immediately rewarded when they cut to Ben and you see him putting down the phone. And
Yep.
it's just like, okay, we're off. It's
Absolutely.
very cool.
We get two things there as well. I like the way that you put it with Josie. What we've seen of her to this point, we see her in the beginning. She's mysterious. We see her on the porch when they find Laura's body, and she's worried and concerned. We see her at the mill, and she's under duress, being like chased by Catherine when she's actually trying to stand up for herself. And we see her at the town meeting where Ben is, trying to glad hand her and basically get the land out of her.
We know
This is the
at that
first time
point
we
from
actually
Harry
see-
too, he's after the land and he's after the mill.
the land, right? But this is the first time I actually see Josie happy.
Yeah.
And it's like purely happy. So like I think your point's a good one. You really get to see the full character, but we just get to see that side of her that isn't this either scared or mysterious or under duress. This is just her with the man that she loves. The other thing too is just Catherine saying that he's here again.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So it's been going on.
for a cop who's should be aware of his surroundings and a detective or whatever, like he's just put himself right out there to get caught. But
Well, they
know what's going on.
It's not necessarily, or like I never thought of it, that they're trying to hide it. They're just they're not flaunting it. That's always the way
Okay,
that I
maybe,
like
yeah.
for me. Because to your point, he's not a dumb guy.
There's no reason
He's
to-
not a dumb guy. Catherine
yeah,
would
and it's
just
not
look out the window.
It's not forbidden love or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I never saw it like in that sense. But just, they've been going on for a while. We know that her husband died a year and a half ago. I believe they say
It's
that in
long enough time.
The town meeting. But yeah, it's interesting. We go back. Or do you have something else with
Well,
that?
we do get the last thing too is this is when Harry is holding Josie and they're out looking off in the distance. We hear the foghorn
Yeah, I know.
in the distance again, which Pete had said at the very beginning, the foghorn blowing, and this is when Harry realizes it must have happened about 24 hours ago to Laura, and Josie just the way she says, "I'm afraid," as they're looking out into the darkness, chills.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Yep. Anyway.
Back to my world famous traffic light. We're just seeing the red light, and we're back with Sarah Palmer, and she has a vision of someone taking the locket. And as she jumps up, we catch sight of someone in the mirror. This is the ending of and I should point out, this is the ending of where it would end in the pilot. So if you were watching it on television like I did the first time, this is where it would end. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens after in the international version. But Dan, there's a lot of stuff going on here. This is a great moment, and how is she seeing what she's seeing?
Yeah, this is where we start. Is this the first time we really start to get anything that is beyond the normal in terms of like, what's going on here? We saw Sarah go up and look in Laura's room. We saw her point of view at the time, and she left and came down the stairs during the day, and everything was fine. And now she's laying there smoking on the couch and remembering and recollecting, and something's coming up. I do like the cutting back and forth between Sarah on the sofa and thinking, and then her memories that she's recollecting, and also a flashlight in the woods back at Sparkwood in 21. Pretty recognizable right away as someone searching for something. So the cutting back and forth until finally someone, we see a hand find the locket and pick it up, a gloved hand. So, we can't tell
one
who it
thing
is.
I will say about this ending here is when Sarah, I don't think this is a spoiler because it's on what you would see. As Sarah gets up, we see behind her there is a mirror, and there is a face in the mirror. And that is a character that maybe we're going to see again. We're going to talk. That's basically where it ends. So Sarah sees the gloved hand, as Dan was saying, pick up the necklace, and she screams, and we see
Yep.
this face in the mirror. Now, at this point,
Let me say, Eric, I never have noticed that before. I never, when Sarah sits up and she screams, and I'm just like focused on her. Like, she's incredible. I mean, she's just magnetic. I can't take my eyes off her. I have never noticed a mirror in the background. I never noticed a face in a mirror. This is all absolutely new to me, and I've seen this show multiple times.
So
I have no
fast that
idea.
unless you're really looking for
Yeah.
it, you're not going to see it. So, like,
Which I'm going to do now.
Yeah, now
That's
the next
incredible.
time you watch it, and I will not spoil anything about the show. I will leave it unspoiled.
Yeah.
But I will talk a little bit about what this is and who this person is. So there's a guy that
So if we're going to talk about the international version, just for anyone who is not watching that version and has not seen
they
the show
can
and
skip
wants
this.
to do this beat by beat with us, now is probably the time when you want to stop, because the international version, as you're going to talk about,
and I'm not going to talk about any of
that
that though.
come
Like
later in the actual show.
that's also my point. I'm going to just
You're gonna leave all of it
briefly
out?
mention this stuff because
Great.
I want to spend time with it when we get to that episode. It's the same footage, so why do it twice?
Perfect. Okay.
But I will say about the face in the mirror. So we talked multiple times about David Lynch and how there's mistakes and how mistakes lead to new stories, and we saw a little bit of that with the one-armed man, and then he heard him talk, and he had to put together this ending. So at some point, David Lynch is on the second floor
under the fan. And I was on my hands and knees for some reason, cleaning some little part of the rug. And I was facing away from the door of the Laura Palmer's bedroom. And I heard a girl's voice, a woman's voice, speak to Frank Silva, who was the set dresser. And Frank was in Laura Palmer's room prepping it for shooting. And he was moving a dresser, and he had moved it near the front of near the door. And the woman said, I'm hearing it, like back there, Frank, don't lock yourself in that room. Ha ha, And I suddenly pictured Frank in that room for like the word locked and like something like this. And I went running into Frank. I said, Frank, are you an actor? And like everybody in Hollywood, he said, why, yes, David, I am. And so I said, you're going to be in this scene. And he says, what am I going to do? And I said, I don't know. And then we shot these just drifting across the bed, just to drift across the room. Nobody was in it. And then I said, Frank, now you get down and hold the end of the bed like this and freeze. And we did one shot with him there. And then we went downstairs and we got geared up to shoot night scene when Laura Palmer's mother, the great Grace Zabriskie, is laying down and she's distraught. We had an operator named Sean, and Sean is on the wheels. And what Grace has to do is she's thinking and she's picturing things in her mind's eye, and she sees something about the woods and the finding of that thing. And so she bolts upright, screaming. And Sean has to get her like this. And it was perfect, the first one. And I said, great, cut it, And Sean said, no. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, there was someone reflected in the mirror. And I said, who was reflected in the mirror? And he said, Frank was reflected in the mirror. And there he is.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom of an oval mirror.
Wow. I just got goosebumps.
How great is that?
Great.
from
It's just
two
incredible.
moments. So like the one thing of him hearing it, the mistake of the shot, and then all of a sudden he had sort of pieces that he could use for shooting that international ending. Now, with
That's
the
so
international
great.
ending, it starts off, you've got Sarah, international ending, you starts off with, you got Lucy and Andy. And they're
So funny.
Andy's, and this is never used again, so we can freely talk about this. Andy is playing like
Absolutely.
a horn,
He's playing slide trombone or something?
And Lucy is playing with like one of those old fashioned
paddle ball,
things.
rubber ball. Yeah.
And it's like it's completely insane.
They're sitting like 6 feet away from each other, and she's like playing the paddle ball, and the ball hits her in the head. Andy's like playing it, and the slide's like inches from her face. They're just like, this is their home life together, which I love the insight.
It looks like it's the Great Northern. Like it looks like it's very all wood, from what I remember.
Wood paneling,
and stuff. And then the phone call, the phone rings, and it's Leland. And he talks about, Sarah's vision, and she saw this guy, the guy I mentioned, Bob, that is this new character, and that she saw him in her room, and then it goes from there, and we end up. It's weird though. Let's just talk about that. Why is Leland calling the police station, but calling Lucy at her house? Which is always like.
Well, unless he tried. He tried calling
to Lucy. Does he say? I tried to call the?
No, I don't know if he did, but I would imagine he tried calling the police station, and it's a small town, so you can get Lucy's number and call her, because Harry would have been out at this time still looking for. No, he would have been because he dropped James
at
off.
that point.
He's back at the Great Northern at that point.
At that point, they're just they're just like
you're right.
Connecting dots.
It's a little bit like let's put it together.
Also, we have to get this thing done to an extent.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we the one-armed man that was in the he gives him a role. The guy that caught in the mirror, Frank Silva, he gives him a role, and so we get we mentioned the Red Room, so I could say that again, and we get the 25 years later, and we get a bunch of really cool moments that we'll see again.
But we'll come into those later. This is great, Eric. I knew a little bit about Frank Silva not being originally cast, and that it was. Well, more than a happy accident. Like it is absolutely changes the trajectory of the entire show, ultimately. But that and that one, I mean, all this, going with intuition and how well it paid off. I mean, it's just beautifully crafted. It's not to say like it came out fully formed. Like obviously a ton of work going from those raw materials into something and turning it into what it is. But to start with that as the inspiration it's awesome. Totally
and you
fascinated
think,
by it. Amazing.
What if they didn't have like the international ending criteria that they had to meet? Would it? I mean,
right.
Would it have come? What else would have come? Like you don't, who knows? But it's
how would it have been different?
Interesting to see how all that played out, and how much of when people think of Twin Peaks, they often think of the elements that came from him touching a hot car and overhearing the thing, and then catching that guy in the mirror. It's amazing.
Well, it's like you said, like it's not surprising to me that those are the things that people carry with them from Twin Peaks, thinking of David Lynch as that conduit for the universe. These are the most powerful things coming through his intuition. Of course, they're going to be the indelible images that he makes from that. It's incredible.
All right, so that's it. So we're done forever. No, we're not done forever. That's the pilot. Join us for the next episode, which I don't know how often we'll come out with these. We're hoping for every 2 weeks, but you'll see. We're going to do the best we can. Next up, we're at Traces to Nowhere. Episode not directed by David Lynch, so we'll see how that one goes. Although written by Mark Frost and David Lynch. So yes, join us. Hopefully you enjoyed your time here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Looking forward to talking to you next time.
Thank you for listening to Meanwhile with Dan Johnson and Eric Grissom. Meanwhile is produced by Eric Grissom and Where's My Robots? The Meanwhile theme song is written and performed by Paul Finn and Evening Pines. If you want to let us know what you thought of the show, you can reach Dan at danjnj.com, both on the web and on Blue Sky. Eric can be found on Blue Sky at ericgrissom.com, which is also his website. It's also me, right? That's weird. We'll see you again, and in the meantime, be good.
Listen to the sounds.
Meanwhile.